If 7 seasons of Mad Men has taught us anything, it's that people in marketing are pretty much the worst. It's the job of advertisers to separate you from your money and give you nothing in return but a pocket full of good vibes. Obviously, I'm not against factual advertising. Anybody who makes a product should be able to tell people where it's made, how it's made, where they can get it, what it costs, how about testimonials about how it actually works, scientific data. You know, the truth. But that's not what advertisers do. Advertisers don't get paid just to relay facts. It's their job to give the consumer as little as possible and extract as much money as possible from them. And they do this by exploiting human psychology. They may try to make you nostalgic for a toy you've never played with, make you hungry for food you'll never get or receive, show you some heroic figure you can be if only you smoke cowboy killer cigarettes, or remind you that you're a stinky, repulsive blob of a human being, and the only way to overcome that is by rubbing their product on your skin or in other areas.
But collectability is also a kind of marketing.
Human beings like to collect things. We love to be completionists. And I get that collecting anything can be a hobby. I mean, just ask Jeffrey Dahmer. But I'm talking about hobby products where collectability is built into the business model, such as baseball cards. Wizards of the Coast, the current owners of Dungeons & Dragons, took that and put it on steroids back with their Magic the Gathering cards. Not only did they have very rare cards for you to try to collect and complete the whole set, those very rare cards were also the most competitive when playing the game. All of this is a long way of saying that people who play Heroclix own way more Heroclix than they actually ever need or wanted. I know, I used to play it myself, and I probably bought 10 Heroclix for everyone that ever made it to a game. And that means there's a robust secondary market for these things, either on eBay or Craigslist or even in your favorite local game store. And you're saying to me, Dave, I don't play Heroclix, right, but there are a lot of Heroclix that make great miniatures for other tabletop games. We here on Miniature Mashup have used them to make a ton of things for Dungeons & Dragons, of course, and even Warhammer 40k. And I often hear, well, I'd love to do that, but I'm not very crafty. That's why today I'm showing you a one-step paint hack that anyone can do that'll make Heroclix miniatures perfect for other games. Roll that intro! First things first, you gotta get them off the base. Sorry guys, this is as close to crafting as we're gonna come today. You can just paint the giant Heroclix base if you don't mind it. They are quite big for most games in the scale, and they're got a very sort of distracting shape and a little notch thing. For myself, it's worth the extra step to pop them off the base. If it's not for you, just a Sharpie marker over the Heroclix base or some black paint, which coincidentally we'll be using a lot of today. Heroclix have 3 kinds of feet connecting them to their bases. You've got the earlier models, which have basically the bare feet are just sculpted and glued right down to the base. There's not a lot of connective surface. For those, a small pair of wire cutters, you grab the bottom of the foot and you gently rock it back and forth. You don't need to clip or squeeze, just seize the bottom of that foot and do a gentle rocking motion, and those little feet are gonna come up. The next step is a Heroclix, and they're kind of standing on 2 round plates. Now, those can come off in 2 ways. You pick at them with your wire cutters. You can go at them with a knife. I guess there's a few ways to get these off. Or you can treat them as the third type of Heroclix, which are standing on a large plate that's sort of a semicircle. With those, I put them in a vise. I take a chisel, but a flat screwdriver works just fine for this. A butter knife or something. Again, just be careful. Very gently, we're going to just mallet or hammer and just knock them off the base there and just pry them free. You'll be glad you did. You don't want to try to do this, and you don't want to try to keep the Heroclix on the Heroclix base. It's just not worth it. Now, once they're off, you are going to need to glue them onto a base. You can just go online, and Amazon has very cheap Games Workshop style round bases. You can get a sack of those for about 10 bucks, about 100. So not a huge expense and worth it. But I promise you, that will be the extent of our crafting. From here on out, we're just going to use some very cheap Walmart craft paint, apple barrel, 50 cents a bottle. So nothing makes a character seem more superhero specific like a chest logo. It started with Superman and Batman. You don't even see that much in movies these days. The thing about the chest logo is characters don't need a chest logo to be in a Supers game, but once they have that chest logo, it's kind of, they only really work, at least aesthetically, for a Supers game. Next up, we've got the Punisher again. The big skull symbol on the chest obviously marks him, makes him too iconic. I'm just going to cover that up with black paint. He goes from being the famous vigilante who we, for some reason, can't get a good film of, to just being a security guard or a mercenary or a cop. You can still use him in your superheroes game, even as the Punisher, really, but you could certainly use him as some kind of a minion in a Supers game, but now you can also use him in Cyberpunk, Delta Green, or any modern or sci-fi game, really. This particular Heroclix set released a few Punishers with the same sculpt, but holding different weapons, and so I'm just gonna do them all this way. These red bands on Daredevil and his chest logo again, his chest lettering, kind of distracting, too specific. He'd make a really cool assassin or just some kind of shadow monster for a modern or fantasy game if we covered this stuff up. So let's do it. This is Thunder, and the bright yellow insignia on her chest just reeks of superheroism. So we'll cover it up, and she can be a modern mage from, Urban Arcana, or she could even work as some kind of a spellcaster in a fantasy game, really. A penny's worth of paint and a couple of strokes with a brush, and this miniature, which was very specific, very limited in its use, is now far more generic and has much more utility for any kind of a gamer. She could even be some kind of a modern-day psychic character. Here we have good old Johnny Storm. Let's see if we can turn him into some kind of a fire monster, or some kind of flaming specter. I don't know how good the YouTube algorithm is, but I may get demonetized for this one. This is Longshot. He's an ally of the X-Men. I actually like the little star insignia on his leather jacket here, and I like the leather outfit overall, but the bright orange piping is a little too cutesy-poo superhero stuff. So I'm just going to cover the piping up with black paint and just give him what it would be a more normal-looking leather outfit. As normal as a leather outfit can look outside of an S&M bar. Now, instead of, superhero, he says a little bit more of a generic street warrior for the future, adventurer type. This isn't a Heroclix at all. This is a toy Yeti from the Plant vs. Zombies toy set. He's a solid piece of plastic here. He's not posable or anything, not an action figure. Cool monster, but little cute in the face. Let's see what a little bit of black paint can do for him. These goofy, googly eyes which say, "Whoa, wacky!" We can just black them out and make him look a little bit more dead, sinister, like a gray alien from the cover of Communion. This is Doorman of the Great Lakes Avengers. He'd be a pretty good shadow creature if it wasn't for these white gloves and boots. Up next, we've got Dr. Doom from an alternate timeline where he never studied science, but only studied magic and became the Sorcerer Supreme. Normally, I wouldn't do Dr. Doom too much because he is so iconic, but this one, because he's an alternate take, and I love this sculpt, we're just going to take that very green cloak, turn it to black. It's going to make him recognizable, a little more generic. Next up is the Wrecker, and, he would make just a fine hooligan, ruffian, scallywag, thug, what have you. Except for these purple boots and the purple gloves and mask, they're just purple on green is such a comic book thing. Let's just black them out. Again, comic books are just so quick to splash around the color purple, especially on villains, but it doesn't always work the way you want it to. This is the Leech. He's a Superman villain, and he'd make a great monster, a great modern monster for any kind of modern horror game. He's got that cool little trench coat, but the purple skin and the Jack Kirby sort of lining on him on the inside is a little distracting. Again, too genre specific. We're just going to black it out with black paint. Again, we have another Dr. Doom variant that I'm just going to black out the green on. Sometimes you gotta come in with a second coat. This is Magic, a member of the New Mutants. She was in the New Mutants movie and played by that big-eyed actress. I can't think of her name right now. She's Colossus' sister. She'd make a great fantasy figure with the magical sword and everything, but we do have to cover up some of the X-Men insignia stuff she's got going on. Next up, we've got Nightwing. Nightwing is who Robin of Batman and Robin of fame grows up into. He makes a fine street-top assassin, but we do have to cover up some of the more colorful elements of his costume. And to make his domino mask look like a more traditional mask, we're just going to cover up his forehead with some black paint too. While I got you here, let me talk about a great source of large size bases that I've discovered. Now, I wouldn't pay full price for these. These are a cover that goes over electrical sockets when you're childproofing your house. They got these plastic things you plug in, that way your kid keeps a fork out of there. I don't have any kids. I do have a lot of miniatures, and I did find these at a thrift store for like a whole sack of these for like $1. You do have to cut the little prongs off, but then you have these wonderful plastic large size bases. As far as cutting the prongs off goes, I start with the wire cutters and then I get in there with my Dremel tool. Doesn't take much time or energy to do it. This is going to be the perfect base for our Yeti. Alright, we've got kind of a fighting Joker here. Again, a little too iconic with the green hair. We'll just black it out and add a little facial hair, a little beard to his chin with the black paint. And now it's just a pale guy who looks kind of like the Joker. This is a robot that was commissioned by J. Jonah Jameson, and I think he was even commanding it back in the days, and it has his little face in there as a picture. Cool looking robot, but the J. Jonah Jameson, it's gotta go. Let's just cover it up with black paint. This could be a guy in a spacesuit, or an exosuit, or an android. You get to make the call. And we've got Havoc and Bane here. Again, they're just a little too iconic, a little too colorful. We just color in a few areas with black, and they become a little more appropriate to generic science fiction or crime, modern-day stuff. This is obviously the cinematic Bane, and with a full black mask, he looks like something more appropriate for a horror game. This guy with the metal arms is a Wolverine enemy. I can't remember his name. Cover up his little exposed jaw, and again, he got something a little bit more horrific. And while we're here, let's give him some black boots, as the blue tights turning into his boots doesn't look very convincing. This is Azrael, and I think Azrael would make a really cool looking wraith or some kind of an undead for a fantasy game, but we have to blacken him up a little bit. There's just way too much red for that now. This is a very old Heroclix version of Gambit, a very famous X-Men from the cartoon, not so much in recent years. Would make a fine modern-day adventurer character, but I don't really care for his weird purple chest plate under his trench coat. Let's just black it out. And while we're here, let's fix the hair, too. This is Black Canary. She'd make a cool modern Street Fighter, but I don't love the yellow Velcro straps on her boots. As always, guys, if you'd like to see this project or any of the ones we've worked on in the past, please come on over to our Facebook page and check us out. Say hey, we've got a great community over there. If you'd like to support this channel, please like, subscribe, hit the bell. I don't want you to miss future videos. Also, I've got a Patreon. Why don't you do a super chat or check out my GoFundMe campaign? Even better, if you'd like to get some of these miniatures that you see me working on here today, check out my eBay store. Why not support this channel and get yourself a little something too? As always, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.